This is Professor Michael Manassian, and you are listening to Eye on Literature. Podcast number 21, The Jack Kerouac House in Orlando, Florida. In December of 2006, my wife and I visited the Jack Kerouac House in Orlando, Florida. The Kerouac House is located in the College Park district of Orlando. Kerouac did not actually own the house, but he rented rooms in the back of the house and lived there with his mother during part of 1957 and 1958. The Kerouac Project now owns the house and sponsors a writer-in-residence program there. You'll see a link to their website on the Eye on Literature page. This house in Orlando is the place where he wrote Dharma Bums and where he learned his novel On the Road would be published. When we were driving around the area looking for the house, we stopped to ask directions of a couple walking their dog. Unfortunately, they had never heard of the house. I'm not even sure if they knew the name Jack Kerouac. After circling a small lake, we came upon two women standing in a driveway. They knew exactly how to find the street and the house. In fact, they seemed fairly excited to finally meet a couple of Kerouac tourists. It turns out that we were only a few short blocks away. When we arrived at the house, I parked in front and took some photos of the house and the massive banyan tree that bordered the property. A few weeks earlier, I had read an article by a former writer-in-residence who complained that people had been walking up and down the porch and peeking in the windows, violating his privacy. Didn't they know a writer was at work there? Well, I didn't want to disturb another writer who might be working, but there was no sign of anyone in the house. I decided to walk up onto the porch and sit in one of the chairs, but resisted the temptation to peek in the window, at least for a couple of minutes. After posing for a few photos, the front door suddenly opened. I really expected to be chastised and chased off the property, but instead I was warmly greeted by the then writer-in-residence, Darlene Finch. Darlene was on her way out to see a movie, but she very graciously invited us inside the house for a quick tour. Well, Darlene not only gave us a full guided tour of every room, she also filled in details of Kerouac's time in the house. So, Darlene, if you should listen to this podcast, a very special thank you for your kindness and generosity with your time. In the winter of 2007, I wrote a poem based on my experience at the house, and I called it Ficus benhalensis, which is Latin for banyan tree. I like the quiet blue house at the end of the block, the one next to the tall banyan tree. They say Jack Kerouac lived there 57 to 58 and wrote the Dharma Bums on one long continuous scroll, like some beat Bedouin scribe burying sacred texts inside pottery jars in the back of caves. Sharing space with his mother, typewriter, and a bottle, sometimes he felt so cramped he slept in the backyard beneath the dangling roots of the banyan tree, like a priest or goat herder dreaming of America in the long paragraph of the past. Orlando, the Dead Sea, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. That poem was published in the spring of 2007 by the Dos Passos Review. That's the end of today's podcast. This is Professor Michael Manassian from Broward Community College in Broward County, Florida, reminding you to keep your eye on literature.